This is S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to S4, where we talk about the real issues involving paranormal and current events, coming to you live from the S4 headquarters in the heart of the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. We also cover topics such as disaster and terrorist response and preparation and veterans issues as appropriate. So tonight it's going to be a fun night. We have Barry Gaunt from the Kentucky MUFON and Eric Marcum, our S4 scientist, discussing the new Space Force, SpaceX, and UFOs in 2020. Actually, we're going to be talking about Bigelow Industries as well. And I have to give a shout out real quick to our S4 combat medic, Will. He is currently training in Poland. And, well, he'll where he goes from there is nobody knows. Because of COVID, their next assignment got canceled. So he's not sure where they're going after Poland. So I want to bring up UFO reports real quick. According to Newfork, we've had 584 reports in February, 711 in March.
Okay, and by we, are you talking Washington State, or are you talking United States?
That's globally, actually.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
219 in April, and so far in May, there's been 20. And that's just Newfork. So we'll talk a little bit about that later, but we have to talk about the creature fights.
Oh, man, creature fights, third hour.
No, I thought that was next week. Next week's creature fights is third hour. We have to bring in Marcum and Barry. Who would win? The Thunderbird or the Dragon? What do you guys think? Marcum?
I think it depends on the dragon. I think
Fire dragon,
because there's magical aspects to there's magical aspects to the Thunderbird that may counteract, say, the Chinese version of a dragon. But I think if you go with the European, dragon, which like Smaug the Terrible from The Hobbit,
right,
he's going to be picking phoenix feathers out of his teeth.
And I have to agree with that 100%. The dragon will outdo anything that the phoenix can throw at it, because dragons are also mystical, magical creatures in their own right.
Right.
And, so you don't want to screw with the dragon.
Well,
there would be very much left.
Even if it's a water dragon. So, so all the elements have their own dragon versions. But even if it's a water dragon is still going to be able to put the Thunderbird's fire out and then, eat them for lunch.
Thunderbird don't have no fire?
I thought they did.
Thunderbird. Okay, so Thunderbird from Native American lore. Mm-hmm. They fly in, a clap of their wings brings the thunder, and they shoot lightning out of their eyes, along with the fact that they drip water off of their backs, which is what makes it rain.
I got you.
So honestly, in my opinion,
I get the impression they're not particularly combative. They're more of an elemental than they are anything else. So I don't think they're prepared. They'd be very well prepared for a knockdown drag out with a dragon.
See, in my opinion, it would be the Thunderbird hands down.
No,
but that's
you
got
to remember something. A Thunderbird and a Phoenix are two different things.
Well, and you guys also got to remember, someone always has to be wrong, so we got her.
Hey, now. Hey. Okay, so if a Thunderbird is flying in there, all it has to do is clap its wings close enough to a dragon to make it disoriented and then zap it with its lightning bolt eyes.
No. A dragon
we got Kentucky Fried Dragon. I mean...
I'm telling you. No. Dragon's going to win hands down.
Yep.
Hands down.
Fully agree.
Worst creature there is.
How can a dragon win hands down? It can't even put its hands down. It's like a little T-Rex.
Depends on which version.
There again, it depends on the dragon.
It depends on the dragon. It depends on the tail also.
Yeah, no joke, right?
Yeah. All right, so I had to laugh when Trump came up with the Space Force, because we've had a Space Force for since the 20s?
Oh yeah.
And the first thing I think of when I hear a Space Force is Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
I mean, but because all they're going to be doing is really monitoring space, maintaining satellite and whatnot, and the more you have, the more kind of technical communications and whatnot you have in space, the more chance we have of cyber attacks on those electronics up there. So can you imagine, and what I envision when I say all that is, we're going to put missiles in space. Yeah, I don't like that idea.
Yeah, but if you think about it, we already do.
Well,
so.
Yeah, I mean, the Reagan started the darn thing with his wonderful program.
Yeah, the Star Wars.
And yes, the Star Wars program, and that was basically being able to use satellites as a defense mechanism to Earth. And then, if you look back into what was the precursor to Space Force, and actually is this U.S. Space Commands.
Yeah.
The Army had a Space Command, the Navy had a Space Command, and they all start. Once the Navy started in '83. U.S. Space Command started in 85, and I don't think the Army got involved in it until 97. I'm trying to remember when they got involved in it. It was 97, yeah. And all of them are, Space Command's major role was space warfare.
Right.
What is space warfare?
Aliens.
Shooting down satellites.
Shooting down satellites, or shooting down
the conventional
intel.
Right.
The conventional explanation. My oldest daughter's was Air Force E7, and then she was actually up for a post with Air Force Space Command, which was September 1st, 1982 is when it was founded, but it was mostly. My understanding, what little bit she could mention about it, it was dealing with our spy satellite network, is the maintaining and defending and getting gathering intelligence from our spy satellites.
Right. And we'll go into them because I actually have a list of all the new technology straight, and it's not classified; it's straight from their own website. So yeah, we'll talk about all that.
It's funny. They were all the Air Force Space Command has been. They were redesignated as the U.S. Space Force.
Right.
Have you guys seen that comedy on? I think it's Netflix.
Netflix
or Amazon Prime with Steve Carell. I figure that's about how it probably really went.
So that's actually part of tonight's show. We're going to go into that a little bit because there's some news with that. So, in January of 2019, Netflix began submitting applications for Space Force to the different departments that you do trademarking with.
Copyright.
Well, because it's mainly for the logo, it's trademarks.
Okay.
So, but they now own the trademark for that logo in 3 different countries. Now, the U.S. allows duplicate trademarks, so Trump actually got that trademarked after Netflix. The problem will come up when they go to sell merchandise. Like, you can go out and buy a U.S. Marines shirt.
Right.
When it comes to actually buying a U.S. Space Force shirt, Netflix has the first trademark over all merchandise sold.
So there's going to be a fight over who gets profit from buying the Space Force shirt.
Well, I honestly think what's going to happen is they're going to have to pay Netflix a certain amount anytime they try and sell a shirt.
Yeah.
But honestly,
right now, that's the way it looks like.
That show got some really bad reviews, but it was hilarious to me. I love that show. I finished the whole first season in the time it takes. We didn't stop. That was binge watched.
And Dennis says season 2 has been greenlit, even though Netflix has not yet officially renewed the series.
Yes.
So have you watched that show yet, Marcum?
Oh yeah, I did like Cole, man. I think I watched it in the better part of 2 days just because I had to work in between.
I think my favorite part is when, for whoever hasn't watched it, when you get to the dog and the ape, the chimpanzee, that is my favorite.
Yep.
Oh God, you're gonna make me go home and watch it tonight.
Oh, seriously, you need to watch this.
Oh,
but yeah, there is actually a little bit of a war going on between Netflix and Trump over that. And it all started with the original creation of the logo, because it really does look a lot like the original Starfleet logo from Star Trek.
Yep. Can't they be original?
Well, okay, technically, the Starfleet logo from Star Trek was taken from the original logo for Space Command.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
It's this whole cycle of who stole whose space logo.
The chicken or the egg. Yeah. So the mission of the new Space Force is the USSF, United States Space Force, is a military service that organizes, trains, and equips space forces in order to protect United States and allied interests in space and to provide space capability to the joint force. USSF responsibilities include developing military space professionals, acquiring military space systems, maturing the military doctrine for space power, and organizing space forces to present to our combatant commands.
Okay, so what I want to know is how they're going to make space borders. Is it going to be like international waters? Where we have, this is U.S. space, this is Chinese space, this is this space. But seriously, as we turn and move, different space is going to change during different...
Well...
So how does that exactly work?
You can't... According to parts of the Geneva Convention, you cannot own space. Any of it.
Okay, so you can't own space.
You can monitor it.
But can you own a piece of a planet in space?
No, you can monitor it. So here's the thing. The first 2 missions by the U.S. Space Force will be the launch of... where's the first one here? A SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket that will be carrying 2 undisclosed payloads into geosynchronous orbit. And then an Atlas V rocket will have the 5th and 6th satellites for the Force Geosynchronous Space Situational Awareness Program, or GSSAP, designed to help the military track and observe objects in geosynchronous orbit. Those 2 launches are coming in the 4th quarter of this year.
Oh, and Izzy brings up a good point. What happens when you set up earthly borders in space, and then the folks from other planets that have owned that area for decades show up?
Independence Day.
Oh, okay.
Jupiter ascending.
So I'm well aware
that sounds like the plot from the movie.
Right?
That we have space treaties, right? But we also have water treaties. We also have land treaties. We also have all these other treaties that there's a fine line in breaking them, and it happens on a regular basis. Where somebody steps over this border and, I don't know, moves a couple thousand troops into there. Right?
But honestly, do you really think the Greys and the Reptilians are going to honor, the United States owns this space? Okay, have an EMP. Boom.
What was that? That's where that treasure planet comes in, and we have space pirates.
Right?
Just riding around on their space rocket pirate ships.
Somebody in the Upriver group commented that reminds them of Spaceballs.
Yeah, we're going to see a Winnebago going up there.
All right. Well, no, that's Elon Musk. Didn't he send a car up there in one of his...
Yes, actually.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but...
In the next few years, it will leave our solar system.
What's that?
That car.
No, I just see this whole space exploration thing and us setting up boundaries and us having a space command and us having a space force. Not that every country that has space capabilities doesn't already have some form of space force, but I just see this as being one of those things that ends up just causing way more issues than anything else.
Barry.
Yes, sir.
Don't you... Do you think we've ever been on the moon?
I think we're already on the moon.
But don't you remember... so in the 60s, when we went to the moon, there was a transmission where Neil Armstrong says, "We're not alone." And that transmission got cut off, but you could hear enough of the transmission to hear him say, there's other people on the moon or other beings on the moon. And
yeah, didn't it go something like this? They're here, they're on the hill, and they're watching us. It was on the medical channel, if I remember right. They had a channel open for the medics.
Mm-hmm. And shortwave and longwave picked it up. A lot of the radio operators from shortwave radio and longwave were monitoring all that take and did pick up a lot of stuff. Santa Claus is here. That was their code name for alien UFO crafts. The biggest part about it is that throughout the time that we had been there, there were several reports of it. You still see reports of craft on the moon right now. I'm sure that when we spent that little space bomb up there, that nuclear blast that was supposed to tell if there was water on the moon, there was some other intent involved in that.
That always seemed like a BS cover story.
Right, it definitely was. Yeah. And you also have to remember that for a long time we did not go back to the moon or have anything to do with the moon. So were we actually forced out of the moon and said, "Just don't go up here"? Or was there a program in place to already deal with the alien forces and the United States? Because we know that there's been treaties and everything else passed between them in the past. But it's really kind of strange when you look at so many people and some of the abductees and that I've interviewed and other people. They have actually been taken to a base on the moon, and before China even actually got a picture of a base up there. I had a gentleman draw me a picture that almost looked identical to what China took a picture of.
So I think it depends on which side of the fence you fall on, because if you look at Corey Goode and his books, where he actually talks about the secret space program, and we do have bases on the moon, according to Corey Goode. And then you have the other ones, and I've heard the theories also where the aliens told us, "Don't come back here. This is
right.
You don't belong on the moon. This is our planet, or if you're not a planet, but this is our space." So I mean, I really don't know which side of that fence to believe in.
Well, when you
I wonder if they just used Senator Proxmire as an excuse, because Proxmire, y'all remember, was, they used to talk about how a bill or some kind of excessive spending would get Proxmired. He had enough pull that he could get stuff stopped.
Right.
And the space, the whole moon Apollo mission was one of those that was supposedly Proxmired. And that was the end of it. But that could have been a convenient excuse if we were told by other entities to stay out of their backyard. It's like, okay, you've been here, you've got your dust, now go the hell home and don't come back.
And, I've heard the same thing about Mars. So, do we have a base on Mars? I don't think so.
I don't think we have a base on Mars. I think we came from Mars, to be honest.
I kind of agree with that too. I believe that a lot of us did come from Mars and other and possibly other planets. But when you get to the, talking about the Space Force stuff and adding it into the moon and all this other stuff, the weird thing about it is there's been so many papers written about it, so many different things. The white paper was written back in 2016 by the commander of the United States Space Force, which has been wrapped up into Space Force, or Space Command has been wrapped up into it. And, some of the stuff that they wrote in this roundtable that they were discussing is, it's the success of the new approach rests on the shoulders of our airmen, who we depend on to preserve our freedoms and actions in space, and who are prepared to assume the mantle and vanguards of the space domain. And then they go farther down there for purposes, definitions of stuff as space missions enterprises, included ASSAP elements to acquire, develop, and operate and train in the subsequent Air Force, Space Force. All personnel to contribute in the operations of Space Force systems, so operating from a garrison. So they're actually telling you something that's going on already. Leverage the weapons and tactics processes to continually develop and test and train innovative warfare fighting. Space Force Task Force. The force includes space operators, mission planning personnel, intelligence professionals, space weapon systems, and other necessary equipment for support. Some of their missions are just, if you get down to it and you start reading some of the things that they are actually talking about, this is not just to keep China and Russia and everybody else, because they're actually talking about, if there's a conflict up there, to confront adversities in all domains. So you're talking about having the ability to do that for a long time. And you look at Michael Sherratt, who has probably been studying different stuff that we have supposedly have developed through black ops or black budgets, and some of the things that they have seen. And you've got to ask yourself, many people have seen equipment or large triangles coming from space. we've always heard of the TR-3B, but just recently there was the X-19B, or that was up in space. Every time it flew up, it was on the satellite flyover. They'd go up for 2 weeks, fly around, and come back. But yet they still want us to believe that we have to launch a missile up to take people up into space from NASA. Why in the heck is that? Because they're hiding something, or they're lying? It's all part of a systematic thing.
Well,
that goes back to a press conference where one of the guys said what they needed to get their gear into space, and pointed to, I wish I was better with names, but as I get older, that kind of stuff slips. But essentially, one military-industrial complex guy looked at another at this briefing and says, "And you got the gear that can do it," meaning that they had alternatives to rocket. He was implying that they had, anti-gravity devices.
Right.
I was thinking of something as we were talking about this. I mean, how much of the Space Force is really looking out for, the country, and how much of it is looking out for business interests? Because you're getting SpaceX, Branson's going to get hit. You got a lot of billionaires starting to put crap in orbit and try to make a living. Starting to monetize space. And let's face it, the military isn't in the business of protecting the people of the United States. Their job is to protect the military-industrial complex. How much of the space command is making sure that Elon Musk's investments, Bill Bigelow's, the big wigs that have kind of taken over NASA's role? How much of this is the government protecting their assets?
I think a lot of it is. But when you're looking at assets, the GPS system, a lot of tactical satellite systems, most of it has to do with communications on the battlefield, intelligence sources on the battlefield. But honestly, do we need a Space Force? All they're doing is consolidating every branch's already existing Space Force into one command.
But it's a possibility it could save money. And that's a good thing.
That part of it, probably. Because
it keeps it. All the information is in one place now.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have the Air Force having one version of the story, the Navy having another. You don't have like what happened with 9/11, where the different departments didn't speak to each other.
Absolutely.
But as soon as there's a space hotel or there's some kind of tourist attraction on the moon, terrorists are going to attack it.
Well, before we go back...
For every leap forward, we're going to have somebody that tries to screw it up.
Before we
and
go
maybe
too
that
far,
they're just thinking ahead for a change.
Right.
The whole... Are we on the Mars already? I can't believe that because of what NASA's still doing. So NASA's next big launch is the Atlas V on July 20th. They are sending the new rover to Mars.
But
it's got one main job.
What's that?
To try and generate oxygen from carbon dioxide.
Huh.
That's the main reason it's going up there.
I guess that's my...
Well, didn't anybody... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But what gets me... Okay, you have... They sent the rovers up. Now you have that what is called Syria. You've got that area of interest where they think there's pyramids and, there was from satellite from above. It looks like there's architecture.
Right.
Where do they send the probes?
There's an obelisk up there.
Yeah. Well, instead of sending the rovers there to check that out, they drop them on the most barren, inhospitable, crappy piece of real estate Mars has to offer, and they creep around. It's like, why in the hell did they not drop them where the architect, they could have ended the argument once and for all if they really wanted to. They could have dropped the rovers there. They could have wheeled up and said, well, this is natural. This isn't, Martian made or anything like that. And they didn't. They stuck it. It's like it's basically they dropped them in the middle of the Sahara Desert where there's nothing to see, and tooled around until the poor things broke.
Yeah,
right. Instead of going to the pyramids, going where any of the stuff that we can see from orbit. And I believe one of the Martian moons, Phobos or Deimos, one of them has some kind of structure on it and is hollow. According to Buzz Aldrin, thinks there's something to that.
Yes, exactly, Buzz, and so did Edgar Mitchell. Yeah, he was the first one that talked about the monolith on the moon of Mars.
And that's
what got me about Edgar Mitchell, though. They asked him about what was it like to be on the moon. He said, "I can't tell." It was like his memory had been wiped.
Right, like he'd been wiped.
Yeah. Or he was told that, by God, if you say what you see, you'll disappear.
Like, they have claimed they've found many structures on Mars.
Right.
And my issue with that is, like, let's say the entire population of the Earth died off right now.
Right.
Within 200 years, most of the structures we built in the last 200 years would be gone. Cement doesn't last worth a crap. Neither does wood. But the pyramids would probably still be here.
Right. It's just like Mars.
Oh, the pyramids have been,
But the people that
pyramids
built them,
are already
they're
thousands
gone.
of years old.
Right. It's been covered by sand. It's been covered and uncovered. It's been all kinds of different things.
That's the thing.
And
I honestly
you have to remember
think those structures are from generations past, but the planet itself became so unhospitable that it couldn't support any life.
Well,
that's why I say I think we came from Mars. I think we did the same thing there we're doing here.
Let's hope not.
We crapped where we ate to the point where we had to leave, and we probably already had, if we had the ability to get here, we probably already had, colonies, or, we probably were inhabiting both. I think what has happened, and this is just my weird theory from some weird visions and dreams I've had. Maybe life began on Earth. We have evolved to a technological society several times. At one point in our past, we had the ability to travel to Mars. We set up a colony. We were doing fine. Something happened. We caused an ecological disaster, and we had to come back home. And I think the reason that they don't want to do all-out Mars exploration is they're going to find out that there's a tie between the two planets, and it's not three-legged, it's not H.G. Wells' three-legged Martians, it's us.
Mm-hmm.
We've been there, we've had to come back, and just human nature seems to be somewhat viral in its nature in the way that we destroy what we live on, live around.
Perfectly.
But now we're stupid parasites because we're trying to go back to the same fucking planet we already destroyed.
History repeats itself. Remember that.
Oh, I don't remember.
So I have heard the theories. What if we never sent them? What if we never? What if we were told years ago, like the moon, this is our planet, stay the hell away from it. You've got how many different Mars observers that I know 2 of them stopped communicating and disappeared. They couldn't get any real viable information from Mars because they kept on losing their not rovers, but their satellites. And so what, if you look at the background of the Mars rover when they send pictures, it looks like red sand. But, we've got red sand in some of the deserts here. What if we haven't been to Mars? But they want you to think we have. Because, funding, they want more money to go back up there again. But are they really going back up there?
Hi, can I address something from the Spreaker chat?
Sure.
J-Ron's bringing up a statement about structures and how long they last. One of the things one of the reasons that modern structures would not, like our bridges and overpasses, anything that is steel reinforced. Part of the reason that our modern structures wouldn't last as long as, say, the pyramids or some of the ancient monolithic structures is we've used rebar, iron rebar inside our concrete structure. Rebar corrodes from the inside, and as it expands, it cracks the cement. Well, as soon as the concrete structure starts to crack from within, water, the elements, you're going to start having that freeze-thaw structural damage. So it probably, at the max, a steel-reinforced bridge or building would probably be unrecognizable as a building within about, I think I heard, like 1,500 years tops, because of that whole corrosion of the iron inside it. Well, they actually decay from the inside.
Well,
that's why modern, when you see some of the later bridges built, the rebar's got that green coating on it, that anti-corrosion coating to help buy some time.
And a lot of them say that it will happen a lot faster if, like in the situation I said, where the entire human race disappears.
Right.
Because of all the nuclear reactions we would have across the world due to all our power plants overloading because there's no one to actually reset anything.
Right, but at the same time also...
Well, David Adair mentions that. He talks about if a coronal mass ejection, that sends that EMP pulse to Earth, there's been some close calls. If it hits, if we had a Carrington event event now, it would be very catastrophic because the oil inside the transformers would blow. There's no power, so there's no pumps for the or electricity to power the pumps that the fire departments need. I mean, it would just be a really terrible cataclysm. And our electrical system is not hardened. That was one of the things that...
Aren't we coming into that 11-year window?
Yeah, we are.
Throw that out there.
We're in the Maunder minimum right now, but we're supposed to, the cycle is supposed to flip over to a maximum. Now we're overdue for a maximum.
Yes, it's supposed to happen in this year, later this year.
What else can happen in 2020?
Oh, don't say that. Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to be on the Pacific Coast here in about 3 weeks. Godzilla will probably come waiting about.
But Marcum, at least
just his younger cousins.
At least you'll be here with us in July when the aliens show up.
I'll be with friends then. Yeah.
They've been moved back to September. Don't you remember?
No, the aliens are going to be here in July, and then we have the land sharks in September.
Land sharks.
Oh, jeez.
Oh. This is the year of Jumanji.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
Somebody roll a 6 already?
No, just burn the damn thing.
Oh, golly.
I think we run Snake Eyes.
So, space capability of Space Force. We got 20 more minutes of Space Force, and then we'll go off to SpaceX.
Do they have any space capabilities?
They do. So, spacelift operations at the east and west coast launch bases provide services, facilities, and range safety control of the... So, I want to bring something up, because, one of the questions that gets asked is, what kind of weaponry are we going to have in space? Well, we've had weaponry in space for, years. Do you all remember that one? There's one video clip I specifically remember where you can see an object in space, and it shoots away, and then you see a laser that goes shooting up right where that object was, where we actually tried to shoot a UFO in space.
Space lasers. Nice.
So you can't tell me we don't have weapons.
I think that was a space shuttle. That was an STS. It was an STS mission.
Yeah. And you can see.
I'm feverishly looking for it, and I can't find it.
Well, they've actually got a UFO in space that was taken from the space shuttle, and you actually see like a laser-guided object that tries to shoot it, and it moves before that laser moves.
I mean, if we're talking about that, we have had space weaponry since the 50s.
Starship Troopers.
I mean, if you think about the fact that we sent up those B-47 bombers with missiles attached to them to shoot defunct satellites to see if it could be possible. Mm-hmm. I mean, since then, they've had to have made some advancements on the weaponry for space.
Yeah.
It's just...
Look at the railgun we've got now. I mean...
the first crew is going up with wrenches.
Huh?
Wrenches. They're going to just beat the hell out of the aliens with wrenches.
No. We cannot
good luck with that when the reptilians have pointy sticks.
The last thing we need is Space Titanic. Okay?
Right?
Doesn't need to happen.
But I am curious what kind of weaponry they are going to have that we've probably had for at least 20 years.
Well, I read a sci-fi book many years ago that it really said that laser beams, and it might have been Asimov. It was one of the scientific type of sci-fi things, not like sci-fantasy, but more based in science, that kinetic weapons would still be your best bet in space. Much like they use in, what's that? The Expanse. They're not shooting laser beams at each other. They're shooting, hard metal objects at rapid speed, because it was, it's a much, you set up trajectories, yes, things are weightless in space, but they still have inertia. They still have mass. You calculate where your enemy is going to be. You throw a stream of cannonballs at him, and boom, they meet.
Right.
That's probably mostly what we have. I don't think a phased particle beam weapon is going to, because of the power it needs, is really going to be that practical. Not until we have a much better power source.
Yeah, we can barely.
No,
even
okay. So using the power of light, maybe not, but using the power of sound, potentially.
Well, I like
sound can't go anywhere in space.
Yeah,
it takes. Sound is an absolutely useless thing in space. That's why the old ad, no one can hear you in space. For a sound wave to propagate, there has to be atmosphere for it, because a sound wave is basically the same thing as when you throw a pebble in the water. You get the waveform propagating through the water. Well, that's what a sound is. It's the vibration of the voice, or the annoying cat behind me propagating through the atmosphere.
Well,
I'd lock him away somewhere, guys, but I'm in a hotel room. There's nowhere to put him.
Oh, I'm not worried about hearing a cat. I like Dennis's comment, though. Because Dennis says, again, someone famous said, our science is 30 years beyond what the public is aware of. And I'd fully agree with that.
I
heard that on the Art Bell show before.
I actually read it 60 to 100 years. But what about, when you're talking about sound? What are you talking about? Frequency is a different sound wave. Mm-hmm. Frequency travels through everything, and that is it's even used as a weapon. Frequency can be just the tones of it. The original the hum of the earth is set at the frequency of 432 hertz. So frequency plays a big part into it, and even when you start looking at ending up on Space Force and everything else, and I'm going to go way back to 2001. When we were talking about chemtrails and everything, one of the interesting documents, the HR 2977 document, was so bizarre, and, it was meant to be changed later. They changed it. The DOD still did away with it. The DOD did not allow Congress to be able to do it. They were trying to stop things that were happening up in space. But, one of the interesting things that they were talking about is they were talking about psychotronics, sonics, lasers, energy directed to individuals, persons, targeted populations. You know what? And to this day, what are we looking at? It goes into our next hour when we're talking about Elon Musk, mind control, expanding chemical and biological agents, terms of exotic weaponry such as electronics, psychotronics, information weapons, chemtrails, high altitude, low frequency weapon systems, right. Plasma, electromagnetic, sonic, or ultrasonic weapons, laser system weapons, strategic, theater, and tactical and extraterrestrial weapons, and chemicals, biological, environment, climate, and techniconic weapons. So, and you're looking at it back in 2001, and the DOD poo-poos this bill like right off the bat. And so, when we're talking about our Congress, no matter what people say, they're going to have an idea of what we already have. And people overlook some of these documents so easy. If you go back and see it, though, you'll be able to tell that they're talking about stuff that we don't know we have, but we still have it. And what did we see when we went into certain parts of the war, in the war in Afghanistan, everywhere else? Some of the military personnel that came back home talked about weaponry that they said, I can't believe what we have. They were using weapons over there, and they were using mind control. They were doing all kinds of stuff. How do you think that you get a whole bunch of Afghanis just to throw up their arms and say, I surrender? In 1997, I believe Bill Gates came up with a idea to be able to put a chemical together that would force that. They were talking about it already back then. So look at where we're going from there, and look where we're going today. And it's all about control and how they do it. And some people bite it, some people don't. And I think the government is more interested in the people that don't. And most of those have probably got something to do with being affiliated with alien abductees.
So do you think they got a lot of their information from the abductees on how to... So you can take it two ways. You can take it, they got the information from abductees on what the aliens have, or you can take it, we have back in Eisenhower and Truman, who actually negotiated contracts with alien races. Which one do you go with?
Well, I originally believed that.
Do you think it's a combination?
For me personally, I think it's a combination. I believe that yes, there was treaties. Eisenhower did meet with people, even the Jackie Gleason Nixon ordeal that happened, and how he changed it, and how it changed his life, in Homestead Air Force Base, and moving forward across the board. What has happened when Eisenhower left? What did Eisenhower warn you of when he left?
The only military industrial
complex, and how dangerous it is. And what have they done through this all time? It is social conditioning. They have social conditioned us all to believe whatever the heck they want to believe. But what we find is that there's some people don't buy it. Some people are not affected by the frequency waves, the EMF. And I'm telling you right now, you can hear frequency waves around my house all the time. They beam different stuff at us. Other people seem to buy it, And I think what the government looks for in the terminology desk at the Pentagon is more interested in studying the abductees, because why do the abductees wake up to a point that it doesn't bother them and they don't buy it? They don't buy what they're selling.
But is that conditioning?
I don't know if it's, I think that they have tried to condition several people, and I think it's all part of it, and they have tried to condition us in several different manners. But I also think that there are some things that they can use and do that are not effective on certain people. And I think the biggest part about it is they find out, what happens with an abductee. Different things go through an abductee's mind that sends them that everything that they've known has been a lie. And they start going off, and most of them are have some kind of part of a secret or pick up stuff on magnetism. They can build. They want to build a craft. Other people are talking about frequencies. Other people are talking about this. You bring them all together, it makes a big difference. I think that we find out a lot more. You want disclosure? Get a bunch of abductees together, and you're going to find out more about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's why.
I think disclosure came back when the aliens buzzed the White House and Andrews Air Force Base
in '52.
Oh yeah,
we've already had. You can't cover that crap up. It happened.
1950. What was it? What was it? It happened in 1953. Life magazine covered it. It was in Life magazine, and the wonderful thing about it is Marilyn Monroe's on the cover. It makes it one of the hardest darn things to find. You'll never find it. Right. And then it happened again when Bush was in the presidency. In 2006.
Oh yeah, down in Texas, they had a lot of sightings down around around Crawford, Texas.
Right, but
there must have been something to it, because the woman started covering it. The reporters that started covering it found themselves unemployed.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. I talked to that was the Stevensville incident and all that area that was happening.
Stevensville,
yeah. And Angela Joyner was one of the spearheads on that. One of the reporters, and I've talked to Angela several times. But as we go on later on, you can look at it and see. I think it was in 2006 when Bush was still in office. I think that we were. There was another incident of UFOs over D.C. during that period of time.
It was 1952. Is when D.C. I just looked it up.
But I think there's another one. Yeah. I think it was actually in 2000. If you look at it, I think there might be one in 2006 and bombed the White House also when Bush was president.
Okay, I'll keep looking while you're talking.
Yeah, I think so.
But people say, "Where's disclosure? Where's it?" We've had it. We've had this.
Well, look at Reagan. I always go back to Reagan when he addressed the UN Commission, and he said it would take a force from the outside to pull all the countries together. If you want a president outside of Truman and Eisenhower that would be the best for disclosure, it would have been Reagan.
Well, I think Gerald Ford. Ford was the senator or the rep. Was he a senator? Anyhow, Gerald Ford was talking to Congress about, my constituents aren't idiots. They know what they saw. Because, I grew up in Michigan when that stuff was happening. We actually drove over to that area one night to see if we'd see it. Mm-hmm. We wasn't that far from where I grew up. So, there's the people that, it's like there's people who believe in the Jesus, and there's people who don't. There's people who believe in UFOs, and there's people that don't. And the two parties are never, I think enough of the population is parochial enough that if the saucers really did park themselves over the major cities of the world like they did in Childhood's End, you'd still have part of the population that would believe that they were government or demon. Yeah, that's
demons.
For those of us who have seen them, possibly been abducted by them, had their noses broken by them, according to somebody I know, so that's what happened to me. But we don't need disclosure because we already know it. We take it as a fact. And even if the government comes out, and that government has, that's the funny thing, during all this COVID-19 stuff, the government's all but said, yeah, they're here, they exist, and it got lost in the noise.
Right. So, what? You look like you want to argue.
Well, okay, right. It's kind of hard to believe anything that came out of that guy's mouth. Like, the guy was kind of nuts by the beginning of his second term. When did that speech happen?
That speech, Reagan?
Was it first term or second term? Because the second term, he was kind of off the rails a little bit.
But maybe it took 2 terms to figure out how to approach it.
I mean, with everything, Eric, not just like the alien thing. You know what? That, to me, that's bravery to actually admit to that.
Right.
But at the same time, the guy had some insane health issues that were kind of...
Well, especially the second term.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, his Alzheimer's was kicking in by then.
Yeah.
True.
That was, that was tragic seeing
But
that
who
happen.
knows? Maybe that is actually why he brought up aliens and stuff, is because the Alzheimer's kicked in and he was like, hey, guys, guess what? I saw this alien the other day. Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that?
Halfway through that, right? He could have honestly thought he was Gorbachev.
I think that was September 21st, 1987. Is that address to the UN General Assembly where he talks about...
So that's second term, isn't it?
So that was his first term.
Was it first?
That was his first term, wasn't it? Because Jimmy
So
Carter...
88 to
Wait a minute.
92
I
was the
joined the...
Yeah.
Yep, because that's right. Because he was my commander-in-chief when I was in the Navy, and that was 81. Okay. I can remember pieces of my past, but they're not...
Right.
They're not in context all the time.
And it was
81.
It was Bush Senior in 91 because he's the one who did Desert Storm.
Right.
Yeah, because Reagan ended in, 88, didn't he? That was the final term?
Did Reagan only... Well, but then Reagan had 2 terms. If it was 1987, that was his second term.
Yeah, that was towards the end of his second term.
Seventh year of his second term, because he was out by 88, right? 4-year cycle.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Yeah, because that's when the Bush Senior came in.
And did Bush Senior only did 1 term, didn't he?
God.
No, I think he did 2.
Did he do 2?
He was double term.
We've had decades of whoever
double-term
is
people.
the president's been getting 2 terms. Yeah, double term.
At this point, we might as well just vote everybody in for 80 years and call it good.
He did a double because he was 1988 to 1989 to 1993 because it's January.
And Clinton took over 93 so I had Bush Senior for my first combat tour. I had Clinton for Somalia, and then I had Bush Jr. for both tours to Iraq.
Yeah. And then
and with that, folks, we got to go to our first break. And when we come back, we will carry on our conversation and we will pick up SpaceX with Elon Musk.
Yeah, for our first break, here is Cryptamnesia with Poltergeist. I just want to say their drummer just passed away.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, man.
Our heartfelt condolences to Cryptamnesia for the loss of their drummer.
This one's for you, man.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I'm watch as I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your poltergeist. I must have 1,000 souls trapped inside. 1,000 souls that are haunting in my eye. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I brought it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire. But I cannot die. I am your poltergeist, poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. I'll eat your dreams while you immerse in all of your hate. Just waste away like you're destined by your fate. I'll be alive but I'm dead to watch you die. So go ahead and take my life, I dare you to try it. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I brought it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your poltergeist, poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Oh, poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Oh, you're caving in, the loss of sleep keeps you obsessing on your pride. But in the end, you let me in. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I'm wanted here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your motherfucking. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I brought it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your poltergeist, poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist. Oh, poltergeist, poltergeist. Poltergeist, poltergeist.
Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
And welcome back to S4. Tonight we're talking space programs. And yeah, and this hour we are talking SpaceX with Elon Musk.
No Deuce Bigelow?
Bigelow's third hour.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I don't care for Bigelow, but we'll go into why. I'm all about space programs.
Elon.
Elon.
You're an Elon fan?
No.
Heck no. Oh my God.
Not really. you know.
Come on, he's going to own all the Stargates soon.
But, you know, somebody in the Upriver group commented that NASA did just fine. And I would agree, NASA did just fine. But I think privatizing space programs...
But what have they done?
Well, they haven't done nothing in years because, well,
we stopped funding them. They can't do fine if we don't fund them.
Obama's the one who shut down the NASA.
They were crippling.
Come on,
they were
NASA
crippling along
down.
Before that.
That's what I said. NASA shut itself down.
They were.
Whoever just said that, yeah, NASA screwed themselves.
Well,
I mean,
and I absolutely
when the
agree.
first space shuttle shot up, when the first space shuttle blew up because they were rushing and not paying attention, you know, that was
right.
Morton Thiokol took the hit for that, but that was all NASA.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that
they used
Challenger?
Morton Thiokol as
yeah.
Well, that's on the guy who named
that was all NASA.
But you start getting...
Well, NASA lost its relevance. I mean, when NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, when they stopped exploring,
right,
and stopped sending humans into space other than in low Earth orbit in space shuttles, doing rinky-dink bullcrap experiments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like if NASA had gone ahead and done something toward moon colonization or, a Lagrange point space station like in 2001 Space Odyssey, done something along that line, even if they had to start, and they're wasteful. They are so wasteful. I mean, those huge tanks that they jettison for the space shuttle, the main central tank, those
right.
could have been used as modules for a space station. They could have taken those up into orbit with them, parked them in orbit, and, they were the perfect, they would have been perfect for making...
They're the perfect
space. Yeah, they would have been... you could have reused them, made a hell of a space station out of them.
Well, and that was Bigelow's first project. Bigelow, when Bigelow Industries first started getting into space, that was his goal, was to design. And again, we'll get into Bigelow on the third hour. But the only reason I bring that up is because that was what Bigelow's original plan was to design space stations and modules.
Yeah, but you see the difference between Bigelow and Elon, the big difference is IQ points. Bigelow didn't have the intelligence to actually back up anything.
He had the money behind him. And real quick, we always give shout out to new listeners that pop into the chat room. Daniela, welcome to the show. Glad to see you in the chat room. And yes, Cryptomnesia is awesome music. They are our keynote band that we always use on the show. An awesome local band for us.
Yeah, you can check them out on YouTube or they're on Amazon Music, Spotify, all of them. iTunes.
Hey, can I give a shout out to one of our older listeners?
Of course.
She's having a bit of... I'd like to give a shout out to Mary and Charlotte Resnick. They've been cooped up in their homes in Illinois since this COVID thing, and I told Mary if I got a chance, I'd give them a shout out.
Oh, of course.
Just let them know the rest of the world knows they're alive and still cooped up in Illinois.
Absolutely. We love giving shout outs on the show. And Trip, we miss you. Not sure what happened or where you at, but we're missing you.
Well, Trip had some health issues of every bit as serious as the ones I just barely survived. So, when I get back to North Carolina, I'm gonna
look them up for us.
I'm gonna try and head over in that area and see if I can find some kind of If anybody knows I don't remember his real name, but if anybody knows Trippin' Fool's real name, DM it to me, and I'll be back in Winston-Salem for about a week.
Okay.
The 21st through the end of the month, getting moved out of that house. So I'll take a ride over that way if anybody knows his name, and I'll do a welfare check, see if he's around.
Excellent. Yeah,
so
I'm worried about him.
With NASA, the thing is, like, yes, they kind of screwed themselves. They went way off into nothing and died out, but like they are coming back, and they're starting back right where they should have actually left off at 1972.
They're working a lot more with these private companies.
They're working with the private companies, and it's allowing them to use what little budget they have to go and actually they're going to try and colonize the moon in actuality. And we're supposed to be there by 2024. We're supposed to have our first buildings.
I might live to see that.
Right?
Right.
That would be, the thing is, they had the right idea in allowing privatization to occur. Because any government, even something as advanced as NASA, you're talking red tape to do anything, you're talking inertia. Even if you have somebody super bright in an administration like that, what happens is they just drown in the sea of inadequacy that surrounds them. Private industry is kind of like academia, publish or perish. You produce, or you, in private industry, you get your crap together and you produce, or you're out the door. So I think when it comes to innovation and exploration and breaking new ground, NASA was smart to start bringing people like Elon Musk and SpaceX and Bigelow Aerospace. It was a good move because they weren't going to innovate anymore. I mean, there's no more Von Brauns, or there's none of the brains that were there and unleashed in the 60s, 50s, and 60s anymore. It's all administrations.
Everybody knows that old saying that two heads are better than one, or it takes a village, and all of these things, right? So the more people that you have from different backgrounds, from different beliefs, from different everything, working on the same issue, the faster you're going to get to a conclusion of that issue.
My problem with privatization, the way they're going about it, is transparency.
Right.
When you, and that's so there's always going to be a motivation, right? So if the government's doing it, you can send in a Freedom of Information Act to actually find out what they're doing. Now, albeit a lot of it's going to be redacted, but you're going to get a general consensus of what's going on. But when they pass all the stuff that they want to get done, that's probably going to be shadier than hell. And, well, plausible deniability, they can wash their hands of it because, oh, I'm sorry, Elon Musk is doing that, and we don't have to divulge what's going on because we don't have the information. You can't you can't do a Freedom of Information Act to Elon Musk or Bigelow Industries because they could say, nope, it's trademarked.
Well, that's exactly right.
You beat me to it. Beat me to it. I was going to make that point, yes.
We are getting some better communication with that. It's just not coming in the way everyone wants, and it's not coming at the right time. Like, it says right here on the Spaceflight Now, which is part of SpaceX's website.
Right.
In the fourth quarter, the Delta IV Heavy is going to launch, containing a classified spy satellite cargo. Wonder what that is.
Of course. That's what most of them have been.
It's for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. Like, like, we are getting some. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't know what's up there.
Well, absolutely. But that's at their discretion.
That's true.
And they don't have to divulge. You
Nope.
can't, and that's my point. You can't do a Freedom of Information Act to Elon Musk or to Bigelow because they can say, we don't got to tell you nothing. We're privatized.
Right.
100% right.
The biggest
100%
part
right.
of it that they're trying to create discretion, but the thing is, the U.S. isn't the only ones working with them.
No.
That's the thing. So, because we've got launches.
You got China. China's working with some of them.
Well, like,
Russia's
Turkey is,
working with them.
you know, Turkey's sending up a
Well,
satellite.
they're stealing a lot.
It's a communication satellite, supposedly, but Turkey's sending up a satellite from Florida this year.
Check that out. Turkey's in the game.
They send,
There's some
They
that are in
send
the
a lot of
game that I
stuff up
never
for-
thought would be.
Well, and
Wallops
They're
Island,
sending-
Virginia.
that's why I'm torn.
Wallops,
because-
yeah, my nephew is stationed there, and,
Yeah,
you know, he's an ET on Wallops. Hates it. It's like, but you know, that's like,
But did you
you know,
guys
I'm
know
all excited.
Argentina?
It's like, Lucas, let me come out and see a space launch. Oh, they're boring. He's a typical intelligent millennial. He's not impressed.
But did anyone know that Argentina has a space program?
I've heard that before. That one I have.
I have
sure
also
there's
heard that too.
Tons of space
But,
programs
you know-
out there. I'm sure Antarctica has a damn space program.
Oh, I'm sure.
Come on.
But Barry,
Well, let's
don't
not
you
talk
remember-
about.
But wasn't it Argentina that had the huge alien case?
Wasn't that
Brazil had
It was
Brazil had a very large one.
Brazil did, yeah.
Yes.
Brazil had one of their experts. He wound up dead like the one here in the States.
States, yeah, very.
Oh,
very
the Dulce, New Mexico. Yeah, strangled to death. It was surgical tubing
But
type of thing.
Weird.
It was
but
almost the
But-
same MO.
But I think
yeah,
it was.
yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah,
It's a really hard to pronounce name. It sounds like vagina, but it's Virginia, Argentina, that actually had some an alien, an alien race encounter. And I believe it was Argentina that had a whole school of kids that all came out from the playground and actually witnessed a craft that landed. Wasn't that Argentina?
No, that was Australia.
It was Australia. Yeah.
Okay.
That was Australia.
Yep.
And there was also one of those. It might have happened in Argentina too, but there was a South African event like that and an Australian event like that, where all these school kids came out, and it's like, holy crap! There's a flying saucer in our yard.
Yeah.
There was one down in Mexico by the Zone of Silence or something where there was a lot of sightings of the crashed UFO.
Oh, there was one that was crashed, and there were so many people that were when I think the actual story. It's kind of hidden. I think it's actually hard to even find it now. They their military came across a downed UFO, and they did not respond back. All the people that were there were found dead when the United States government went in and started to try to recover that craft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Argentina had, in 1962, the three truckmen, let's see, that they actually saw an object on the ground in a field. You got 1965, there was the observatory UFO lunar transit that took place in 73. I'm not seeing any of the ones that, in 86, there was a footprint on the ground. In 88, there was another UFO that flew over. So, yeah, if I remember right, Argentina's had a lot of UFO activity. So it makes sense for them to have a space program, just to check
all
out
of South
UFO
America.
activity.
You know, all of South America has quite a lot of them. You know, and when you were just to give you an idea, from MUFON in May. What we had the U.S. Side of MUFON had 572 reports. Worldwide, there was 759, which leaves 187 of them. You know, and the amazing thing about it is that 82 of those cases were within 100 feet of a witness, and then 20. Very interesting. 26 were landings or takeoffs, and 34 involved entities observed. And that was just last month.
Okay, but if we're going back into the Elon Musk thing, how many of those were sky?
You know, the biggest part that we have right now, the problem with UFO and with reports, is SpaceLink and all the stuff that they're putting up as far as their satellite program to be able to give internet to the whole world, where he's putting up 14,000 of them in each month. He's sending anywhere between 60 to 40 to 60 of them a month up there. I think he was a little bit more aggressive in the front part, where he was sending 80 or so up. But we get a lot of reports because you're currently able to see them when the sun hits, and they come in a direct line, and a lot of people see them as a tour. And the problem is he launches them month after month after month. They all take a different orbit. So you can see these things on different orbits throughout the time. He's putting up tons of space junk, if you will,
right.
the size of automobiles. And now, because they've been seen, and they're saying he's putting, he's actually painting them so they cannot be reflected or ever seen, so we won't see them anymore. So you only see the new ones. And once he puts them all in orbit, once he puts them where he wants them, then they'll take a different orbit on as he sets them where they are. Currently, right now, they're not in place, and they're just going in a complete orbit as they rotate. So as he covers the sky up with them in the size of a small bus, if you will, or a SUV, what else can you put on that? And if you look at some of the things that are coming out as we start looking at being able to track individuals, do certain things like that, we may be getting great internet, but we also are getting a great opportunity to be able to be monitored extremely closely. And with 5G and other things, you have a greater economy. If they were to insert chips in a virus or anything like that, don't you think that they would be able to track you with 14,000 satellites up there? What's the purpose?
So the thing that I found interesting about it, though, when I was looking up and looking into SpaceX and Elon Musk and everything, and about the Starlight program, was that it specifically states that he plans to sell some of the satellites for military, scientific, and exploratory purposes.
But
right,
you know what? Here's my issue. You're going to have 11 billion satellites up to give everybody on the planet internet. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about the whole monitoring side of it. What I worry about is the cyber terrorist side of it. How easy is it going to be to hack? We already have cyber terrorism on a rampant level, just with the internet we've got. And how many dams, how many power plants are all controlled by computers?
If you quit giving your password to that freaking Nigerian prince.
Okay, but okay, so the thing that I find really weird about Elon Musk, too, though, guys, is that the other businesses that he's a part of, okay, because he also is part of the
big into AI,
the Boring Company. So that is a giant drill, basically, that makes these underground tunnels for what they call transportation purposes.
So Elon Musk?
Yes.
yes.
So he's the co-founder of the Boring Company. And he also co-founded Neuralink, which is basically a company focused on brain-computer interfacing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so if you take in the boring aspect, the brain-computer aspect, and a crap ton of satellites that are going around, you have Skynet possibilities here. I'm talking this is Terminator in the making. Okay.
Do you remember the movie Lawnmower Man?
No.
It's a guy who actually implanted himself into the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, based on the Stephen King book.
Yes.
Well, it was loosely based on something from Night Shift, but the story was completely different than what the Lawnmower Man was in Night Shift. Yeah,
I think I was like 10 years old when I saw that.
Mentally
scared the hell out of me.
Oh yeah,
like I didn't want to touch a computer for a while.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this is some crap.
Oh, they think 2020 is bad. Wait till Skynet goes up.
It's going up one satellite at a time.
Yep.
Well, actually, more like 20 at a time, but still.
Well, look at the strange thing you mentioned about Elon Musk is that he is one of the biggest leaders in AI.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean,
with all the bad mouthing and oh my God, AI is going to kill us and take us over, he's actually working behind the scenes to bring it on.
Right.
Exactly. And he brings it in a way that it's like going, AI is bad, but at the same time, he is working behind the scenes to bring AI to the future.
Well, in 2015, he co-founded a company called OpenAI, which promotes the friendly artificial intelligence. So
yes, exactly.
't kind of a weird-looking dude. What if he is AI?
He is kind of weird.
So, who was the for lack of a better word, she wasn't a robot, but who was the AI that was actually became the first Saudi Arabian citizen?
Oh, right, that was weird.
Oh, Sophia?
Yeah. So
that robot Sophia? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Did Elon Musk create Sophia? Or who created that one?
He was probably in the background somewhere.
Probably.
Sticking his Tesla engine in her.
If I'm not mistaken,
they keep in Saudi Arabia, they keep their own women chained up in the back room and, adhering to 12th century ideals, but they gave citizenship to a robot woman.
Oh.
Gotta love it.
His name is David Hansen.
See, okay.
Hansen Robotics.
So I wonder if you dug enough, if there would be a tie to Elon Musk and Hansen Robotics.
Oh, who knows, man? He's got his hand in a lot of different pots. Not only that, but he's gone on to say that there's a 90% chance that we are living in a simulated world. Okay.
Oh, we've heard that before.
Exactly. But in all of these things that he's doing, all of these things that he's co-founding, all of this crap, he's leading up to the premise of a simulated world.
Right, exactly. That's where that's his bottom line MO. He's giving the opportunity for everybody to be monitored and everything else by this AI can come through everything. Everything that he is, he's kind of like speaks one thing out of one side of his mouth and does something totally different. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the aliens are just looking down on us, giggling.
Well, it depends. I mean, some of the, as the way that I look at it, I think maybe some of the alien forces are actually working towards that, and other ones are trying to fight against it because I think that there is opportunities that we will see in many of the UFO reports we have. There may be witnesses will say they see the orange orbs. They feel very friendly to them and everything else, and then all of a sudden something white and bright will come out of the way, or they'll try to shoot at it or do something to it, and it runs and it will run off, and the next thing you know, here comes white or black helicopters or military helicopters and everything else in that area. So do we actually have a good and bad force trying to do certain things with people? And is our government actually working with it from even back to the time when Eisenhower put it together with some of these treaties? And we know that a lot of those treaties were broken or not fulfilled. But one of the things that they wanted to know is, okay, you can abduct people. We just want to know who you're abducting.
Mm-hmm. Give us a list.
Yeah, give us a list. You know.
So the weird, like, awkward connections that Kayla Mind happens to come up with here is we've been talking for years about the extinction of mankind and how eventually the extinction of mankind will happen. So we need to either go to Mars or we need to figure out a different planet to go to or any of this other stuff. Okay. Well, I think what he and other scientists like him are also trying to do is make a technological world, a simulated world, for us to, kind of like that Netflix, I think it was, show Upload, where we can upload consciousness into a simulated thing until we figure out how to actually get to a rebirthing spot or new worlds. So I think he's working on it from both sides there. Trying to think of a way to prolong life here and trying to think of a way to get life somewhere else.
Well, it's like cryogenics, you know. How many people have we that are frozen? Walt Disney, all these great minds, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and what did they do?
Man.
You know.
No, John Wayne is actually
is Ted Williams still frozen?
Who?
Didn't they freeze Ted Williams? Isn't he cryogenically? I know there's a hell of a lot more people that have been cryogenically suspended than we know.
We know exactly,
and it's a crapshoot because they still haven't figured out how to thaw them. When you freeze biological matter, ice crystals form in the cells, and they haven't conquered that. So basically, when you thaw them out, it's mush. I don't know.
But eventually they will.
But there are certain, and the unusual thing about it is there are certain animals here on this earth that you can freeze and they will come back.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I think they're using some of the same. They use an ethylene glycol. Like we freeze if it's a very rare blood type, one that you just can't, call up American Red Cross or any other the blood agencies and say, hey, I need a couple units of this. They can glycolize it and freeze it. And then there's the whole process of thawing it out, deglycerizing it, and they're probably using the same technology that we use to freeze human packed red cells that we are. But the early people that went into those cryotubes didn't have the benefit of that technology. So the first 10 years, the first 10 years worth, they're just going to be slush puppies. And it's like, well, we didn't know what we were doing then. So sorry.
So didn't the Gaunt Treaty expire like 2 years ago? Barry?
I don't know right off the top of my head.
So the Gaunt Treaty was signed in 1954. And I thought I read somewhere that just like 2 or 3 years ago, or it was last year maybe, that the Gaunt Treaty actually expired. They never renewed it because obviously, we wouldn't know anyway, because that would be Trump.
All right.
And whether or not he met up with some alien races and, reinstituted.
Oh, God.
Reinstituted the Gaunt Treaty, then, the Gaunt Treaty was the one that Eisenhower signed with, I believe it was the Greys, in exchange for technology. They could abduct, I think it was supposed to be 500 humans. And, you're not going to control that. They can abduct 5,000 humans, and what are you going to do? Shoot them down? Yeah, good luck with that. But hey, we got cell phones.
The only ones that have ever been shot down.
And Velcro.
The only ones that were ever shot down or crashed were somebody's left-handed attempt to give us the technology despite a treaty. It's like, well, you can't give them this advanced technology, but if you just happen to crash or, come up with a plausible way.
Well, that's the other theory, is that Roswell was actually a version of the aliens giving us technology.
Yeah, I've heard that. And it kind of makes sense.
Here you go. Here's a craft, but we didn't mean to give Mexico a craft as well. Because,
the Chihuahua?
Yeah.
The Chihuahua crash. Was it the Chihuahua crash where the army, the Mexican army went to the crash site?
Yes.
Something killed them all, and then the Americans got there and got the craft and left the body sitting?
That was the one where they actually traced it on radar going across Texas. It crashed in Mexico. And I believe when the Americans got there, it was already gone.
Oh, okay.
But it happened.
There was one where they actually retrieved the craft, but
it happened the same night
Mexican
as the
army
Roswell.
had gotten there first.
Yeah, they actually did retrieve that. They actually did retrieve that crap. I think it was. It starts with a C. I'm not too sure what it is.
I don't think it's Chihuahua. I did a search, and it said the Chihuahua. Mexico's Roswell was the Chihuahua, but there was another one.
Yeah, it was
like Cortez.
Cortez. I think it is Cortez.
Was it Cortez? Okay, I thought.
It sounds like
I knew
Cortez.
It was named after. I think so. It was named after one of the region was named after one of the early Spanish explorers.
Yes.
And I just couldn't remember which one it was.
So
the Cortez incident, I think it's.
So the Greada Treaty was signed February 21st, 1954 by Dwight Eisenhower. Apparently it's signed every 10 years.
Imagine that.
This is according to his great-granddaughter, who
is an interesting woman. Yes. That's how we're going to put that.
Yeah, that's all we're going to say about that.
Now, do we think, when you're looking at Elon Musk, that some of the technology that came from these crash saucers is the government gave him some of the technology to use in his rockets?
If he has any of it, I would say yes. I'm just surprised that... I'm almost wondering if this isn't a smokescreen, okay? Because Elon Musk has this technological advantage over, like, Bigelow. If he's not out there sort of a smokescreen that maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, I cracked, I'm brilliant, Elon, I cracked anti-gravity drive. And maybe this early stuff we're seeing right now is to set us up for, the Roswell-style propulsion system to finally get released. Because according to David Adair, the engines in those UFOs aren't just machines. They're bioreactive and they're aware.
Right. They're conscious.
They're not, they're think of like the Vorlon ships in Babylon 5 that were partially organic. Because the one he encountered was aware of him and he was aware of it, and there was some mental exchange going on when you get within range.
Yeah, you actually
kind of like Flight of the Navigator.
You control it mentally, not with a physical.
Okay, so like Species 8472 in Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, those are the ones from Liquid Space?
No, those were the ones
I don't know.
That lived in a bio ship and came from the other dimension, and they killed the Borg off and all that.
Yeah, it was Liquid Space or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said, David Adair has people discount him, but he is stuck by his story despite everything it's cost him. I mean, he's estranged from his family. He stuck to his story. He told his story on Art Bell. 10 years later or better, he's telling the same story on George Nuri, I think it was, or at least somebody who had the show after Art, and his story was, usually if somebody's lying, they leave details out. So unless he wrote this down as a book, and it didn't sound like he was reading from a book, he's either a very practiced liar or he really did have this encounter, because the stories were virtually the same.
Right.
Right down to the end. I believe him. I mean, I want to believe. I want to believe him.
Well, you know what? It's the same thing with Bob Lazar. Everybody discounted Bob Lazar. And then all of a sudden, 20 years later, we're starting to find that, okay, there is a periodic thing on our table now of element 115. All this stuff is coming to fruition, and his story has always been the same. He's always told the same story, and it's and that
Bigelow,
kind of thing.
Bigelow and George Knapp back his story because they were there in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Bigelow backs his story, and why would he? That's like they say, oh, this is bull crap. That this, like Gordon Cooper. Gordon Cooper had his UFO story.
Right.
Gordon Cooper was an astronaut. He doesn't need street cred. Okay, he doesn't have to make up a UFO encounter to be relevant.
Right.
And I heard some critics say, "Oh, he heard that story from somebody else, and he's just repeating it." That's bull crap.
Yeah,
Gordon Cooper wouldn't need to.
He doesn't.
He's one of the men that, he's been to the moon for freak's sake. He doesn't need to make shit up to be, credible or relevant. He's like permanently relevant.
And that's
as far as astronauts go, far as astronauts go, I got to say this real quick. And Neil Armstrong, probably was the most quiet of them all, and I don't know what they did to him.
Right.
But I'm gonna tell you something. That guy was changed after his experience on the moon. I mean, he went through a lot, and he stayed so quiet. And if you get to getting in the mind of Neil Armstrong and got the real story there, when everybody else was doing everything different, I think we'd have heard some outrageous things.
The fact that he never came out toward the end of his life or wrote everything down to be posthumously, I don't know. It just seems like if anybody had the real story, I think it would have been him.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know what they did to Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell is like, oh, I don't remember. It's like, dude, you're on the friggin' moon. You can't,
exactly.
Well, wipe out his memory.
Right. And I think that's what happened to Armstrong. I think some of the, Buzz Aldrin has seen some pretty strange things, and I don't know if he's got the whole story right, or if he's been altered by some way. And that's all possible.
He's the most vocal.
He is the most.
I mean, he wears that shirt. Get your ass to Mars, and he's all about manned exploration.
Yeah, but the really weird thing about it is when he came back from Antarctica, he started talking about it, and all of a sudden, you don't hear very much from Buzz Aldrin anymore.
I just saw Facebook. He does some stuff, or somebody does Facebook for him, and he was basically talking about raising his flag you know, and he was on his balcony with his barbecue. But you don't, you know, that guy that denied, that guy that confronted him about faking the moon landing, learned you don't get within punching distance of Buz's face.
Right.
It's like, dude, you just let a 70-year-old man knock you to the pavement.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, and y'all remember the Disclosure Project, you know, and when they had all the big names that came out and talked about their experiences, and Buzz Aldridge, if I remember right, Buzz Aldridge was actually there.
I believe he was there. He wasn't one of the. I don't believe he was one of the witnesses. That was in 2003. The DC, the DC Freedom Press, Free Press incident. The first Disclosure Project. That was the one that
was with Greer. Greer headed that one.
That was Greer, and it was very unusual because of the fact that one of the things that we hear all day is about false flags and everything. And Carolyn Rosin, and I always talk about this one because she stood up there. She worked with Walter von Braun, and some of the things that von Braun told her, he was talking about false flags, and he was giving her all these false flags. And then it's interesting that her last thing was in the final one. The final one is the alien threat. The alien threat.
Right.
And then when you watch the History Channel's TV 20 years later, almost 20 years or 17 years later, with the TTSA group and Lou Alonzo. What do they say all the time about their crafts and what they see over the ocean and the Navy reports and everything? They use the same terminology. We have to be prepared for the alien threat. The alien threat. And it seems like we're just pushing us that way. That's just all the way that it goes. And
then we have a space force.
When I was on the Nimitz, I saw what I believe to be a USO. And the official explanation was there was a submarine with lights on. Give me a effing break.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have headlights on submarine. I mean, I don't know. I didn't serve on subs. They may have. I know that when they're operating on the surface, they do have the running lights, but that doesn't explain what I saw.
Private Snuff, forgot to turn the lights off.
I didn't realize,
that didn't happen.
I didn't realize how big of a role SpaceX is actually going to have in all of our future missions.
Oh, yeah.
They've taken over.
Oh, yeah.
So, have you guys heard of the Lunar Gateway?
Stargate.
Lunar Gateway. I hope it's a Lagrange point, some kind of Lagrange point satellite or space station, so we can resupply a moon base.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So it was formerly known as the Deep Space Gateway, and it was our last stop before taking off into deep space type thing. So there'll be a refueling center there, everything. The main mission of it now, it has taken on the Artemis program for NASA.
Artemis.
Right.
And it's the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024 in the lunar South Pole. But the Gateway is actually, it'll be a twin to the ISS. But it'll be a lunar orbiter.
And when are they launching it?
So the first piece of it will go up. Oh, where'd that go? Come back. November 2023, they'll launch the power and propulsion element. And then that same month, they'll launch the habitation and logistics outpost. Which kind of messes with my head because, that's it. They're calling it the Halo.
Yeah, dude, no, bad name.
Right. So, but
I hope they do something like like Arthur C. Clarke envisioned, where you had this spinning cartwheel type thing in space so that you have artificial gravity, because we humans do crappy. I mean, we have not evolved to where we lose bone mass, our hearts don't pump right, our fluids don't distribute correctly. It's like there's a lot of wear and tear on a human body in space because we're used to 1G. And you get us up there where there's no G, and our biology and our physiology does not work. So they're going to have to do something with an artificial gravity if we're going to be up there for long term.
Absolutely. And like this is the first step to actually building a colony on the moon. Is having this, because this is where they're going to actually they're going to have to stop here, and then they'll take shuttles down to the moon's surface.
That's very much, that was the L2, well, Arthur C. Clarke called it. It just took 50 years for him to do what he said they were going to do anyway.
This is the
that whole cartwheel in space was his stopping.
You know, it's really funny on his website, you know, on SpaceX's website, and you go to some of the stuff, you know, they've got the missions to the moon. The title of it is Returning Humans to Our Lunar Neighbor. And then the other one is Mission Mars and Beyond, The Road to Making Humanity Multiplanetary.
Oh. That's a horrible title. You could have gone so many better ways there, man.
Yeah, no, is that not a weird way to say, the road to making humanity multiplanetary?
Well,
it's trying to be politically correct.
I don't understand why Elon is trying this so hard.
What?
If he truly believes that our world is a simulation, why is he doing all this?
To prove his theory?
Well, no.
Well, you got to get your eggs out of one basket. Right now, supposedly, all of humanity's eggs are in one basket here on the Earth. If something cataclysmic, extinction level event, coronal mass ejection, asteroid, whatever, nuclear holocaust, you name it, man-made or natural.
Quantum tsunami.
We're gone. We're done. Earthlings are extinct. So we got to get some people, we got to get spread out through the solar system just to ensure that whether we deserve it or not, just to where, we is another matter, but we got to get ourselves spread out to where we're not in one place.
Well, not if it's a simulation. They'll just do an update. We'll go offline for a few days. We'll be fine.
Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I just saw something else. It's like going, he's got a rideshare program now. And where he's saying that you can actually, if Eric Cooper wanted to go into space, he could buy a
ticket,
a ticket for $1 million, as long as he doesn't weigh over 200 kg. So, find information that you need to make your reservations online.
Okay, hey. So if a person does weigh over that amount, can they do same thing as an airplane and buy 2 tickets?
I don't know. It says affordable rates also available in mid. I don't even know what the heck that word is. But I mean, and you're 100% right. What he, it goes back to his plan of what he is about, saying that we're living in a simulation, but at the same time, and we may be living in a simulation because of what the social conditioning has done to people. If he takes it to that level of what they're actually selling us, and everybody watches TV and you see a hamburger and you want to go out and eat a hamburger or whatever, it's all part of this stuff. And if you look at our country today, yeah, we're in major problems. But it's almost worth buying a ticket to get off this planet.
So we're going to be going to Bigelow on the third hour, and I guess my question would be, where does Bigelow fit into Elon Musk? Are they working together?
Oh man,
I think that's the wrong way to word it.
It ain't.
No, Bigelow.
I would think they would be such rivals. I don't know. That's hard to. That's a hard one to suss out.
Well,
because both of them are so.
But Elon Musk has the brains.
I think Elon's got right, but I think Elon's got he's the public face of the civilian space program. I think Bob Bigelow's I guess I'm saying that they both have equal but separate roles. Bigelow is the covert side of it, and Elon Musk is the misdirection. Elon Musk is the thing we watch while Bigelow's doing what he's supposed to do.
It makes me wonder, though, because, Bigelow lost me when he, and this really pisses me off, and I can't remember, and you could probably help me with this, Barry, but I know there was a hypnotherapist that was working with abductees, and Bigelow paid him for all those case files.
Yes.
Was that John Mack?
I think so.
So it is, John. Yeah. But one of the weird things about Bigelow is that Bigelow and the United States government go hand in hand. Unfortunately, Elon Musk, you don't hear too much about that, but I can guarantee you that you've got to get some kind of approval to be able to go into space, put 14,000 units up there, everything else. So he is a misdirection. He is the they're equally working within a government thing. We don't, hey, look, we just sent two guys up in space, and NASA launched it, and it was a SpaceX deal.
Mm-hmm. And with that,
right. But they had to go through a lot of regulatory. They had to do a lot of testing. As NASA, if I understand correctly, NASA created the guidelines that Elon Musk had to use and pass in order to send use his system for a manned mission.
Yeah, but
it wasn't just like he did it with NASA and the government's blessing and regulation.
Right. But so did Bigelow, because Bigelow is the one who got $22 million from I believe it was Robert Reed.
Whorehouse Harry Reid.
Harry Reid. There
exactly.
you go. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that in the last hour. Now we have to go to our last break for the night. Yep. And when we come back, we'll be digging deep into Bigelow.
Here is Hell Within from Cryptamnesia.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
And welcome back to S4. We are on the last hour, and my least favorite person to talk about is Bigelow Industries. And you know what is really interesting? So I buy my ammunition from Discount Ammo. Not Discount. What's the name of it? Anyway, it's an ammunition, a bulk ammunition company, and I get the packaging. It came from Bigelow Industries in Montana. Since when did Bigelow Industries take over ammunition companies? Like, what the hell? But
probably when they closed Bigelow Industries.
Right. So my first introduction to...
Can I ask a question? Is this the same people that own Bigelow Aerospace?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, my first introduction to anything Bigelow was actually Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory, and he did an episode on Bigelow Industries. Interesting. So I started doing some digging, like I always do, and yeah.
So I'm just gonna throw a little update about Bigelow Industries on there. So in March of 2020. Bigelow Industries laid off all of its employees.
Right,
and they said that it was due to the COVID-19. However, most of the employees have now been permanently laid off, and the others do not believe they'll ever be returning to work. So they're talking about potentially disbanding the entire Bigelow Industries.
Well, maybe it's because Elon Musk has taken over.
Yeah, I'm on their website. I just went to the job opportunities. There are no job listings at this time.
Yeah.
So, is he disbanding his company because he's merging with Elon Musk?
No.
Or did he become redundant?
Honestly,
I guess that shoots my theory about he's doing the covert stuff.
Honestly,
maybe he
Robert Bigelow is not a smart man. Okay, I will put it that way.
Well, no,
He's not a smart man.
Elon Musk is the IQ, and Bigelow is the money.
But he's not the money either. That's the problem. Yes, the Bigelow Industries was basically founded, and all of their money came from his real estate opportunities and his hotels.
He had a hotel
and everything.
chain.
Yes, but he wanted to only put $500 million into it. $500 million isn't even going to buy you some blast shields, man. Let alone make stuff in space. I mean, it's just not going to happen. On top of that, his big push for 2022 was that he wanted to place an inflatable space hotel in orbit.
Right. I remember reading that.
An inflatable space hotel.
So picture this. He builds an inflatable space hotel so that Elon Musk can fly tourists up to the hotel to stay. There you go.
Is that included in the rideshare program?
He is not building anything up in space for $500 million.
Well, no,
it's not happening.
That's why the government gave him $22 million additional to help him with his UFO.
Okay, so $522 million still isn't buying nothing in space.
According to comments from Charles Bolden, Bigelow Aerospace responded to them, and one of the comments was he was disappointed in Bigelow Aerospace, which is an experimental module on the ISS, and they haven't done more to implement their vision of commercial space stations.
Huh.
And they're blaming the fact that the U.S. has handicapped their budget.
Now,
$522 million does not sound like a budget that's handicapped.
No, not at all.
No, but the $522 million, you got to understand that $500 million of that he brought up for himself. That was all his personal money. So technically, the only thing that he's taken out from the actual government is that $22 million, which $22 million seems like a crap ton, unless you're talking about space exploration, where that's not buying you nuts or bolts.
Yeah, but at the same time, $522 million, whether he put his own money in or not, he's the one. If they commercialize space and like the ISS and future ISSs,
dude,
can
you imagine what S4 could do with $522 million? Oh my God, we would find Bigfoot.
I would have a home organ Pepper. But see, the way that I look at Robert Bigelow is he's a failed businessman. Okay? It was an experiment to take a businessman and to see if he could implement his stuff into space, and he failed.
But it makes
miserably.
So it makes me wonder if Bigelow was a little too paranormal for the government's taste.
I wouldn't say he was too paranormal.
I disagree.
Huh?
I disagree with that.
I think he was still I still think he was a distraction. I don't know.
So who's the distraction? Elon Musk or Bigelow?
Well, Elon Musk is not the distraction. Otherwise, we wouldn't be using him for our potential space programs into the future. Like, we're talking several...
I don't know. There's more to... I don't think Bigelow Aerospace is done. I mean...
Oh, no. Not by any means. I don't think it is.
I think what we're seeing is camouflage. I think he's going to be redirected to more of a covert
so Elon Musk
operative than open.
So Elon Musk is what everyone needs to be looking at, while Bigelow is working behind the scenes more on the abduction side.
No, I would actually, me personally, I would put it like this. Okay, every single time somebody's brought up abduction scenarios, all of this stuff, and brought it to the forelight of anything,
it goes to Bigelow.
You got your UFOs, you got your abductions, you got all of this stuff that's happening with the actual ETs from space. Okay? Mm-hmm. What happens to those people?
All the reports were going to Bigelow.
I understand that, but they get pushed under the carpet. They disappear. They no longer exist. Their industries fail. So maybe he got too close to understanding what was really going on, and they didn't want that to be public knowledge.
I don't know. I don't think so. That might be the cover story.
I don't think so because, again, if it was government, you've got the Freedom of Information Act. Bigelow doesn't have to worry about that. So, and the government was actually funding Bigelow with his projects. So, it makes me wonder, like I said, if Elon Musk is what everyone's supposed to be looking at, because space exploration, oh my God, we're going to space, while Bigelow works behind the scenes on what their bigger agenda is.
How lock and key is the Freedom of Information Act?
Huh?
How lock and key is the Freedom of Information Act? Like, how much do they actually have
now?
to?
Well, they've actually added restrictions and made it very costly. Like your average citizen investigator, you can't afford Freedom of Information Act, and then they have ways, they've gotten away from
and you're not guaranteed
answering questions.
You're not guaranteed to get everything they have either. I mean, you can't prove it.
No.
And if you do get it, so much of it's
if they don't want to answer it, they just say we can't find it, or they redact it so heavily that you've got like a chapter number and a page of black.
Exactly.
Here's your Freedom of Information.
Mm-hmm.
Or they just deny it.
And then the Obama administration changed FOIA forever, because now you can, and you're correct about the cost of a FOIA. Sometimes it's $20,000 to get a FOIA, and all you'll get is information to come back that says, we cannot release this information because of national security.
That's all they have to say.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Or in the case of Paulides, where they told him $2 million.
Right. They have gone off the hook.
That $522 million. We could afford that.
Right.
Just saying.
I honestly believe that Bigelow is just going to be a cliff note, and he is going to disappear into obscurity.
I don't
like like Lear, the heir of the Learjet fortune.
Exactly, where everything is this guy, and then he just disappears.
So Bigelow bought Skinwalker Ranch, and then there was 2 other ranches he was looking at. Now, isn't Skinwalker in Utah? Barry?
No.
Probably.
Yes, it is.
And do you remember where the other ranch was? There's another ranch he was looking at that I think he bought that was in Colorado or Arizona. I'm not sure which.
He has done so much stuff in the past, and one of the things that they were actually, the Skinwalker deal, and the Pentagon with BSA back in May 29, 2008 created the special. I mean, there was contact with the Pentagon involved with the secret UFO program. Also, the Skinwalker Ranch, it's all got to do with the Pentagon research, because what it became is it became a research of the science of paranormal and also UFO counters, because of all the UFO counters and everything else. And then he started looking at the looking at the 37th parallel, and all the secrets behind what they consider to be the UFO highway. And you got to remember something. One of his highest ranking people that worked with Bigelow was John B. Alexander. And I think he's probably one of the most dangerous men in the country as far as his abilities, and from even the start of the men that killed goats and what he was doing in Cambodia and everything else back in the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And so, there is so much involved with that, and still does, and John B. Alexander is still, or was at one point, being able to, was working on warfare that had to do with not damaging anybody, but doing it by your mind and by everything else. If you look at some of the things about it, and he was Bigelow's right-hand man for years upon years upon years. And it's interesting, when you look at Bigelow now at Bigelow Aerospace, they're based in Las Vegas. I was in Las Vegas, 2 years ago, and went by the area. His logo used to be Bigelow Aerospace with a gigantic alien head on it, and you don't see that now. The building has been repainted. It just says Bigelow Aerospace. But some of the things that have gone on with him, he is highly connected to the government. In fact, back in, I can't remember when it was, maybe 2010, 2011. Maybe one of you guys know the exact date. But the FAA, if you had to report, if a military or a pilot had to report a sighting, it didn't go to the United States government. It went to Bigelow Aerospace.
Oh, absolutely.
Right to Bigelow. You know? So that's a big coup to pull that off.
And see, that's what pissed me off the most about the whole thing is when he bought all these case files of abductees who entrusted their personal information and their personal experience to a hypnotherapist. And he just sold them all down the river to Bigelow Industries. I'm sorry, as a paranormal team, no, our case files were lock and key. Yeah, and any paranormal team worth their weight would never, ever give or sell their client information to anybody. You know how many TV shows approached FMP about getting our case files so they can put it on their TV show, and I tell them to screw off. And
of course.
You've got a hypnotherapist, well known in the abduction field, that's just going to sell all the case files of all these abductees? No, hell no.
Oh, no, right.
No, I think he woke up. I think he woke up with the equivalent of a horse head in bed with him. You know, something threatened him to sell that.
Right, exactly. Something definitely threatened him. Mm-hmm. You know, when you look at it and you go throughout the whole time, you know, Bigelow and the UFO, everybody was in the UFO. Let's look at what happened with the UFO community. All right. First of all, back in 1969, January 1969, Project Blue Book was supposed to be gone. Well, it didn't go away. So what happened in 69? Every UFO, like MUFON, Four Coast, Kufos, all of them got together. I mean, and they all came out. That's when Hynek changed his mind and became a spearhead with Kufos, right. You know, and started all this stuff. So everything changed and it all went. So what you're seeing it all going private again. It's going into somewhere, all the UFO stuff going private. So they don't have, back then, they didn't have to do FOIA still at the same time because it was a nonprofit. It's a business. It's this. You cannot call upon any of those to get a Freedom of Information Act. And then they kept Blue Book open until 1970, January of 1970. And then they closed it off, but they already had all this other stuff. Then Bigelow comes around in, I think it was I'm not too sure of the dates. And I apologize. I used to have it in my head, but man, when you get to be my age, things get rattled in your brain.
Amen, brother.
You know, but I do know that he formed what they call the UFO Coalition, where all of them
paperwork.
Yeah, so if you look at the UFO Coalition, I think it was 93, 94, somewhere like that. It might have been.
95 is the National Institute for Discovery Science.
But he disbanded that. So he founded Bigelow Aerospace in 1999.
Right.
The National Institute for Discovery Science to research and advance study of various fringe sciences and paranormal topics, most notably ufology. And he researched calculation, black triangle reports, ultimately attributing the latter to the military. And that was disbanded in 2004. Mm-hmm. He launched 2 experimental space modules, Genesis 1 and 2. And I'm not seeing a date on that. He launched the Beam module in 2016. I'm not seeing the other one, though.
If you look for the UFO Coalition, you'll see some of them. But, you know, interesting, some of the people that are on the boards of all of the things that said, okay, it was disbanded after a year or so. And then what's funny is that in some of, like Swytech or Woods or some of the other board of directors in some of these things, they'll still, if you look in their bios back a few years ago, they were still saying that we are sitting on the board of the UFO Coalition. The funny thing that happened in, BASS was the Bigelow project, and it started in basically 2008 when they started investigating unidentified aerial phenomena as a science and a research, and he developed that group. That's the same time when Harry Reid and all this other stuff started coming to him saying, all right, we want to do this. Well, at the time with MUFON has a special program in 2008, which goes into effect in 2009, the SIP program, which becomes a personal thing with investigators that Bigelow was actually paying you, and it was a rapid response thing. If you would, I happened to be on that team, and if you would be, they'd give you a ticket if there was a UFO incident, a major UFO incident. You would go forward and you would go immediately. 24-hour response time. The ticket was paid for. Everything else was done, and you had the opportunity to be paid. I never took a check from them, but it was through this BASS.
Right.
It was disbanded, so it was disbanded. Everything else through MUFON in early 2009, 2010, MUFON starts their own STAR Team program, same type of thing, 24-hour response, quick response. But the whole ordeal was basically when the situation came out in 2018 with Harry Reid and TTSA and all this other thing talking about, the government did this and did that, and all of a sudden Harry Reid gets brain cancer, like half of everybody else that does if they know something.
Yeah, they've weaponized glioblastoma.
Oh yeah, exactly.
No, that's going to be fun because Jeremy Ray from the MUFON STAR Team is actually coming on the show July 12th.
Yeah, well, STAR Team is kind of not even there anymore. I mean, at one point, I worked with, when the STAR Team first came out, I was the assistant STAR Team manager through, there was a DOI, and she handled the STAR Team, and then I was the assistant, and then I actually became the STAR Team manager, and then left MUFON for a while because of some of the stuff that was going on. And then I came back to MUFON a few years later. But, it's all kind of things that are sit up there that makes you go, look at all this. I have been on investigations in places where I've actually come in contact with BASS investigators, all carrying weapons, all saying, "Get out of here! This is my case." So it's very interesting. Some of this old stuff that comes back, and so when the 2018 thing comes back, and the Harry Reid thing, and you look at Bigelow offering money to start the SIP program with MUFON, it automatically tells me that, oh, geez, was I working for the United States government back then doing UFO research? Think about it. Could you have been? Maybe. Possibility. That's one of the things that make you go home in the night. MUFON has changed its direction throughout the years and different things, and, but it left a dark mark on them, and they've worked very hard to change that in the many years that follow. But still is still haunted because what happens is that people think, well, is MUFON available is just doing with the government or anything else? Because it's still a shadow thing that we still deal with to this day.
Guilt by association.
Right, exactly.
Now, where did ATIP? To me, ATIP is basically Blue Book carrying on under a different name.
Basically, it was when Lou Alzan, and again, you've got a rock star who became interested in UFOs, and all of a sudden he knows more about it than anything else,
Right.
So you're not going to tell me.
Yeah, don't get me started on that DeLong. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Oh my God.
So
there was a has-been who was trying to become relevant again, in my opinion.
Right, exactly. Well, and what happened? The United States government, the phrenology desk, everything else has been around for years. And what happens? They brought him in. And now their agenda is, just like I said, on their TV shows, everything else that you see, it becomes the alien threat. We're talking about a threat. They want to launch nukes at these damn things. Many times there's been, at one point, just look at the history of the military and UFOs. At one point, we had a shoot down thing on UFOs. Well, guess
shoot
what?
Them down, see if they're friendly.
Right, and guess what? We ended up losing a lot of aircraft, but it wasn't ever put that way. It was friendly fire. It was something else. The Mantell case in 47 or 48, right in the first part of 48, right after Roswell, we still are questioning that case. And then you go today, even I'll go as far as knowing that I have had reports from military people that will say that, guess what? We have a shoot-down order to shoot down UFOs today. Unfortunately, what they've done is they have, and we haven't, what I was told, and I kind of believe this source. We're still researching it to this day. But one of the things that they told us is that they took the F-17s and F-18s and put lasers on them.
So I was just looking up some of the stuff from Bigelow Industries, and it looks like on January 28th, he had an interview with Space News, and in the end of his interview, he says if Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos actually wanted to pursue lunar bases, I would love to join a partnership in putting something together as a team and try to make something like that actually happen. He said, citing the company's expertise in habitation modules, I think we could provide a lunar base successfully.
Right.
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think the powers that be would allow that to happen.
You know his Genesis program that he had going on?
There was some weird crap there.
Yeah. Like the Fly Your Stuff program for $295, you could ship a small payload to them and they would send it up into space. Someone paid $295 to send a business card up to space.
Wow. Hey, we'll fit an S4 card up.
They tried space bingo.
For real?
Yeah, on the first attempt, the arm got hung up and they couldn't do it. Then they did an orbital billboard. It's 14 feet long. Who's going to see it?
Carl.
Right?
I don't know.
Well,
and none of them can get on the same page because you have Greer, who all aliens are wonderful. There's no such thing as a bad alien.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got not Elon Musk. You've got DeLong, who says, "Oh, they're all evil. Shoot them down." We've talked about this on the show many times. You've got good races and bad races, and you've got bad races within the good races. I mean, it's like humans. Are all humans evil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But no.
Well.
Inherently, yes.
Well, it's just a matter. I think it was. I've always kind of been of the belief that if they can get here, it's a Godzilla versus Bambi situation.
Oh, absolutely.
That we don't stand a chance. You know, things like that. There was a show, a movie, Battle for Los Angeles or something
that was an awesome
where the military went up. It was an awesome movie, but by the same token, it was unrealistic as hell. Because, they're not going to have... It's just not going to be... If they've got the power to get here, if they can harness that kind of energy, they're not going to have ground troops. They're not going to need ground troops. They're just going to take what they want and obliterate us.
One EMP would destroy the planet.
You know, I actually have to disagree with that. I will say that, yes, I would say 90% of the other races that come here are far superior to us. However, I would say that there is at least 5 to 10% of those races that are right on that same level that we are.
Some of them
if not even less. Okay, and honestly, I think it depends on what resources are available on what planet. Because if, for instance, we went down the nuclear path, right? So if another civilization went down a Mercury path, or went down a something, you know what I'm talking about, like just different paths of the same type of thing. Well, this engine would enable space travel far quicker than this engine would. But it doesn't mean that they're technologically any smarter. They're just on a different path of evolution using different materials.
It's time for another alien races show. So I think we'll do another alien races show in July. Time for research. So that we can figure out which races are technologically advanced, which ones are about the same as us, and which ones aren't.
Because I would say that there's got to be every spectrum.
Oh, there is.
There has to be.
Absolutely.
There has to be some that just dumb luck traveled upon something like a Stargate or something of that nature that was still working and went, hey, where does this go? Poke the button.
Yeah, that's going to be us.
All right. Well, I mean, let's look at what the rumors or the happenings of our wonderful place over there in Norway that originally started out to find the Big Bang Theory, and I'm trying to remember the damn name of the thing. I can't believe I forgot it already. So I mean, it's the Hadron Collider.
Sure.
And what were they? Well, what were they doing? They're trying, after they shut it down again. What were they trying to do? Open portals. That was the next thing. Let's try to open space portals.
Somebody could have accidentally stumbled on the ability to get here. Whether or not that makes them any more technologically advanced than we are is up for debate.
If they're portal hopping, absolutely. And that's how most of them are getting here, is through wormholes. We know that. Look at the clouds. Look at the lenticular cloud formations that we have seen numerous times where a UFO came out of.
And if we think of it that way too, we also have probably, our race at some point has traveled to a distant planet through some kind of a wormhole or through some accidental time slip. Something of that nature probably brought us to a different planet at some point in our existence as well.
Well, look at the Philadelphia experiment.
Right. Who knows where half of that crew went? It disappeared. The other half was, melted in metal and everything. But
so, have you ever heard the theory about the Philadelphia experiment? I read it one time and I can't find it again. But there was a theory out there. This is back in the 90s. That when the aircraft carrier, I think it was an aircraft carrier, wasn't it?
It was a destroyer escort called USS Eldridge.
Yeah, okay, so when the Eldridge left...
Somewhere between a fast frigate and a destroyer.
Right. Now, when the Eldridge disappeared, It basically, the theory I read, and I don't know what if it holds weight or how much validity there is, but it went into the reptilians' dimension. Mm-hmm. Now, when it ripped into the reptilians' dimension, it created a space where the reptilians could come back through. Basically, a rift.
Right.
And the reptilians basically saw this, the destroyer as a snack. Because if you remember, when the destroyer came back, half most of the crew was mutilated and in pieces.
That or they were fused
into the deck.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they were fused into the deck. Some of them, some of the survivors were known to even actually disappear during a bar fight. Some of them would.
Some of them just went straight insane.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Some of them went crazy, but
they would phase in and out. They would phase in and out
of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to look at it, when you're looking at the Philadelphia experiment, is not to follow Philadelphia experiment because it's been changed so much. But when we talk about Phil Snyder and all the stuff that he did, he was a big component and talked about the Philadelphia experiment in a lot of his lectures. And he was working with Al Bielek at the time. And Al Bielek was also studying the Philadelphia experiment. And there's a lot of different information on that within that area. And I don't know when Phil lost his life by suicide by a tube falling off of a bed.
Right.
Yeah. And all of his records and everything else, and all of his pictures and everything else were gone. And you also have to remember Philadelphia experiment involved Einstein and Tesla together. So there was a definite program to be able to warp in space and time.
See, right there is why Bigelow should never team up with Elon Musk.
No.
You don't get two
well, you know that
like
one of the funny things about Bigelow, and when he did an interview, and I can't remember, maybe 2010, and I think it was I think it was New York Times. He did an interview, and he was asked about UFOs, and he actually said people have been killed. People have been hurt, and then later about that, he said he was referring to a Brazilian incident in 1977, which radiation beams were fired by a UFO, injuring and killing up to 35 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I mean, it's just and what was that? Was that oh shoot!
There's that page again.
yeah. Correiras or something like that. Brazil, I can't remember.
Cortez. The Brazilian. Caracas.
Yeah, it might have been. It starts with a C, but I mean, I know that it could be Carreras or something like that. It was like COL, maybe ARES. I don't know, something like that. But it was in Brazil, and I know it was in '77, and it became a. Ancient Aliens did things on it. You've seen it on TV a few hundred times,
okay,
I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But and then he went into following into the Skinwalker Ranch stuff, and that was all government funded also because they were all looking at the paranormal side. I mean, he was talking about werewolf skinwalkers, shapeshifters, and all that stuff. Dogmen, the whole 9 yards. that have been reported and seen there. And then we just had the show just recently on the History Channel, and I didn't get to see the final show on that, but that was kind of an interesting TV show, if anybody caught that.
I'm sorry, which one?
The latest one, that was called Skinwalker Ranch. I think the History Channel did it. I think they had like 6 shows.
Yeah, I don't get TV.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the thing for me with that one is I watched, I think about 15 minutes of the first episode, and I am a documentary person, and I just could not get into that. I was like, oh my God, I can't.
Well, I did the same one, the first one. The second one, I said, oh, wait a minute, I better watch this for a while. And then I never was able to see it. Yeah, exactly. Episode 1 and go to the rest of them.
Yeah, because I was like, man, this is the boringest crap I have ever seen, and this is not even close to what I thought this was going to be. So
yeah, some of the things that they discovered out there was kind of
Colares. Colares.
Okay.
Colares flap refers to an outbreak of UFO sightings occurred in 1977 on the Brazilian island of Colares. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
UFOs have allegedly attacked the citizens with intense beams of radiation that left burn marks and puncture wounds.
Yeah, and I believe it did kill several people, and then the government came in and looked at it, and I think one of the government generals or whatever has an experience there also. It goes deeper afterwards, but it was
that's one of those that got classified real quick and hidden.
Exactly, and the same thing with we heard cattle mutilation and everything else. The first mutilation of a human being came out of Brazil. And it looks just like a damn cattle mutilation.
Was it Brazil?
You don't see. You don't see. You don't see very much of stuff's happening. I mean, Brazil has always been a very hot spot for UFOs. I mean, it has been, just crazy. Some of the things that happened.
I believe it was Norway. I believe it was Norway where there's also been a lot of human mutilations.
I have not seen any of them. That stuff is pretty well tight-lipped and taken off. I mean, anymore, what happens on the internet, I mean, I remember it back a long time ago. You used to be able to go on and search, and they'd say, okay, there are 3 million UFO things. And then you go back that afternoon, there'd only be 1 million.
Right.
So they've been doing it for a long time. The internet was set up by the DOD. So just imagine, what the heck.
Now, so we're coming down to about the last 10 minutes of the show. And so we've hit on 3 of the main space programs outside of NASA. I believe NASA is involved with, for sure, Elon Musk. But
for sure. I mean, he was, and then Bigelow was also involved in him. Now, what Bigelow is doing now, and is it still government related? I'm sure some way. But now Bigelow's getting up there in age, and Elon Musk is younger. So, is there a changing of the guard?
Yeah, passing of the torch.
Exactly.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially.
I just don't think you're going to get bigger. He knows too much. I guess we'll know if he's outlived his usefulness if he gets brain cancer. Glioblastoma is extremely rare.
If he gets brain cancer, dies in some random crash, or gets COVID and dies, then we know that there was something up.
Or a heart attack. A heart attack's another big one.
Or if he gets strangled to death by a surgical tube.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that one was
exactly. Yeah, that
one was ridiculous.
After 22 lectures too. He made it 22 lectures before they finally killed him.
Right? You think they would have shut him up earlier if that was old? Like,
they tried. They tried.
Hey,
Yeah, I mean, so Philip Schneider.
Oh yeah, he had several attempts.
Yeah, he
I would love to know what happened to Val Venus. That's what I would like to know more about.
Which one's that?
That was the gentleman that he said his father had. He had pictures of an alien that was working in the United States government and advising the United States government. Valiant Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these people just disappear or they move into secluded areas and stay there for the rest of their life.
And nobody hears from them again.
Well, look at Bob. Looks like Bob Lazar moved to Michigan supposedly to have a boron. He had some kind of idea for a car that didn't run on gas.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's disappeared. There was that movie. There was that documentary one of the UFO guys did, and it didn't cover anything new. And as soon as the guy mentioned Bigelow having maybe snuck a bit of that element out, that was pretty much the end of the show.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, see, and that's what I'm saying. So Bigelow goes and buys Skywalker, and then he just disappears. Nobody's going to question it.
No,
he stole, or Bigelow sold Skinwalker Ranch for something like $4.5 million.
That's cheap.
Some time ago.
For
that's a lot of
Ranch?
land.
Yeah, but for Skinwalker Ranch, $4.5 million is cheap.
How many acres is it?
Yeah.
How many acres
Well, you
is
still
Skinwalker?
can't. As far as I know, you still can't get on Skinwalker Ranch. You know, you have to go through. You get permission to go through. I believe it's the Navajos, and some of the things that they report and see. If you look at the Navajo police force over there, you don't want to see some of the paranormal things that they report.
Right.
Yeah, and they don't talk about it. They won't talk about it because to talk about it gives it power over you.
Right.
Exactly.
So they were pretty much, they accept that it's there, and
but that's the Wendigo.
They have their shaman and they have their way. No, that's their take. That's with my people, the Cherokee, as well. You don't. If there's something like that, you don't talk about it because to acknowledge it gives it power.
It brings it to you.
Yeah, and you do. Yes, exactly. You attract its attention, and they don't want to attract that kind of attention.
Exactly.
It's very rare that any of the Native Americans will talk about things like that if they believe in it. If they're the generation that doesn't think any of that stuff's real, yeah, they'll talk about it, and their elders will slap the hell out of them when they get back home. But
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Kayla.
Yes.
What's our next battle?
Our next battle is Goatman versus Bigfoot.
Ooh.
That's the battle this week, ladies and gentlemen. You can vote on the S4 website, www.s-4radio.com. You can vote on Facebook at Four Spoon Paranormal Group, or you can vote on Twitter at S4 Paranormal.
There you go.
And I still say if you're going to do a battle with them, throw in Cheap Squatch.
Yeah.
Oh, we are having we're going to be doing a show on vampires here soon, too. Vampires and werewolves. Looking forward to that show.
Yeah.
512 acres. Eric.
I see that. So, yeah, $4.5 million for 512 acres of haunted land.
But is it usable land?
That's
You
cheap.
would think.
Is it?
Yeah. And remember Mel's Hole.
It depends on how much of it's actually
The
usable.
guy that had the bottomless.
Yeah, but no,
pit
Mel's Hole is in
That
Washington
disappeared,
State.
Yeah, Mel's Hole.
Yes, that has definitely disappeared.
That's in Eastern Washington. Mel's Hole is.
There was probably, and I still think that there are several areas that could become a Skinwalker Ranch that are out there right now, and they're just not being talked about very much because there are some oddities that are happening everywhere within this country right now.
Right. Well, around the whole planet, not just this country.
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm not going to worry too much until my backyard starts glowing green.
Right.
So next week we got Roundtable.
Yep. Next week is Roundtable, one of our favorite shows of the month. And then we have Royal Assassinations.
Yes.
After that.
I'm excited for that one.
Yes, we have to make digs at the royal family. For sure.
Let's not put it as making digs at them. Let's just say we should talk about the importance of the royal family and what they did for us before they were tragically assassinated. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah.
Okay. I've got it right here in front of me. In 2016, Brandon Fugel via Adamantium Holdings bought Skinwalker Ranch from Bigelow for $4.5 million. It's a shell corporation of unknown origin. After this purchase, all roads leading to the ranch have been blocked, the perimeter secured and guarded by cameras, barbed wire, and surrounded by signs that, basically, no trespassing.
Guarded by cameras. Do they have guns? Are they gun cameras?
I'm looking. It doesn't say. Trademark was issued in 2018. Okay, in March 2020, Brandon Fugel, 46, of Utah real estate tycoon, publicly came out as the owner of the ranch. But that's all they.
So
that's its current.
To the new area.
He owns it. And he doesn't want nobody on it.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I bet you can't even fly over that on a Google satellite anymore.
Probably
I bet it's
not.
one big black spot.
It's going to be one big black spot of 512 acres. Mm-hmm. Anyway, y'all have a safe week. We will see you. What do you got?
Something just came across my computer screen here.
Okay.
2020's been kind of a hellish year.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But just so everyone knows, the next 5 months, spelled Jason. And November is our next Friday the 13th.
Oh, good God.
Oh,
2 days after Veterans Day. Imagine that one.
I actually had to think about it for a second, but July, August, September, October, November.
Oh, right. You have to stick around, Marcum, for the show.
Crystal Lake.
Yes.
Which one?
November 13th.
Oh,
Friday the 13th.
The people I'm replacing were offered extensions and didn't want to take them because of all the unrest. I thrive on that. So, yeah, if they offer me an extension, I'll be there in November. I might have to fly home briefly to winterize or sell my place up in the mountains. But, yeah, I plan on staying out there a while once I get over there.
Excellent. We got some projects we're working on.
That sounds interesting.
We'll be hiking the entire South Skagit Highway and doing a twofold. We're going to be cleaning up the trash on the highway, for one, as a community support. And we're going to be, it's one of the most haunted highways up here. So we'll be running EMF meters and cameras and looking for hot spots.
Oh, yeah. I got all my gear ready.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, and I'm bringing us at least one satellite dish.
Excellent.
For our other project. Yep. If I can get my butt up on the roof of the place I'm leaving in Winston-Salem, I'll have more than one. I guess I better just plan on bringing my pickup truck and not. I'm going to have so much crap. There's no way I'm going to be able to get out there with my Honda Element.
I might have a line on a Geiger counter. It depends on how this all goes.
Oh, there you go.
I have a Geiger counter.
Yeah, he got one.
Matter of fact, last time I was up there, Corey Reese's mom was the one running it.
Yep.
All right.
I've got one too.
When we went to that haunted mill site.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Well, come on down, Barry. You can join us on our walk.
Absolutely.
I'd love to. And if you need another one, I've got a spare here, so I could send one out to you too.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Awesome. So with that, folks, stay safe this week. We will see you next Sunday for the roundtable. And remember, keep your eyes to the skies.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on S4, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. You can contact S4 through our website at www.s-4radio.com or on Facebook. Make sure you give us a like on our page and join the Forest Moon Paranormal group. If you are interested in advertising, take a look at our packages and contact Cole or Eric at 1-360-999-2830. Again, thank you. And remember, keep your eyes to the sky.